Been a while since we've had this esteemed gentleman on the show. We're glad to have him back. Lieutenant Colonel Allen West is with us now. He's an author, commentator, former congressman, and of course, veteran. Also the author of the book, Hold Texas, Hold the Nation. Lieutenant Colonel West, great to have you, sir.
Good to be with you, Buck. Thanks for having me. It's been too long.
How are we doing right now in this fight against the left and the Democrats to get President Trump and the Republican Party, hopefully along with him, reelected? How are we doing in this election cycle so far, in your opinion?
Well, I will tell you, I'd like to use the phrase from Admiral Yamamoto after they bombed Pearl Harbor, when he said that I fear that I have awakened the sleeping giant. And I think that's exactly what has happened here in the United States of America. We have a very clear choice. Either we stand for the rule of the law or we allow the rule of the mob. And when you look at all the video that's coming out of Portland, Seattle, Chicago, New York City, I was talking to some friends up in New York City, and they say that it's basically like being in a gulag up there. The American people don't want that as their future. They don't want socialism, Marxism, communism. They don't want to have people that are going out into their streets and threatening them, and coercion, violence, intimidation tactics. And even here in the great state of Texas, we've seen Antifa and Black Lives Matter try to, stir up that type of chaos and confusion. So I believe that you're going to see an incredible turnout, and I believe that you're going to see a resounding defeat for the Democrat Party.
Do you think that, BLM, based on the polls that we saw a couple of months ago, was people were saying, and the media was, of course, touting this poll, it was overwhelmingly popular as a movement with the American people. It went away back under the Obama administration. We all remember it started with Michael Brown and Ferguson, and it faded out, and probably because there were a few law enforcement officers, most notably in Texas, in Dallas, I believe it was 6 officers who were murdered by a BLM supporter. And then all of a sudden, 5, thank you, sir, 5 were murdered by a BLM supporter. And it went away. Do you think that we're at a point now where BLM has become, at least for mainstream Democrats running for office, a liability going into this fall?
Well, it is a liability. And, when you look at the fact that you have so many of the Democrats out there that are somewhat trying to embrace it, they're definitely not speaking out about it. The head of the New York City BLM movement said that if our demands aren't met, we're going to burn the system down. You see in Chicago, where the head of the BLM said that if our demands aren't met, we're going to continue to loot. And they're advocating for people to go out and loot stores because that's part of reparations. You look at the website and you look and understand what they stand for. BLM, Black Lives Matter, is not dealing with anything that is affecting the black community. As a matter of fact, one of the biggest issues in the black community is fatherlessness. You only have 24% of young black children have a mother and father in the home. But yet, when you go to their website, Black Lives Matter is against the traditional nuclear 2-parent household. They're not talking about school choice. They're not talking about better education or economic opportunities in our inner cities. They're definitely not talking about criminal justice reform. These are all the things that the Republican Party and conservatives are talking about. And I think that you're going to see a good deal of the black community that's going to reject this far left approach, even though Joe Biden did select Kamala Harris to be his running mate.
Speaking to Lieutenant Colonel Allen West, author, commentator, former member of Congress, also author of Hold Texas, Hold the Nation. Lieutenant Colonel, we're going to hold Texas. How are we looking elsewhere? I mean, you're also a man who knows Florida quite well. How do you think we're going to do there?
Well, I don't know it as good as I did. I've been out here in Texas now, enjoying myself for the past 6 years. And, I'm the chairman of the Republican Party here now, going into my first month in that position. But I still think as well, when you look at the fact that the left is really embracing this far, socialist Marxist approach, you've got a lot in the Hispanic community there, especially Venezuelans down in South Florida, and also Cubans. They don't want to see that which they fled from Venezuela and Cuba to take root in the United States of America. So I think that Florida is going to be successful as well. But you have to be concerned, of course, without a doubt, with the exodus of so many people from California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, many of them moving into Tennessee, Florida, even here into Texas, that they cannot bring those failed ideologies with them from whence they were fleeing.
And I want to ask your opinion of the ticket, now that we know what it is, Biden, Kamala Harris. What do you make of Kamala Harris as a political opponent? Obviously, you're not a Harris supporter, neither am I, right? So we know that. But what do you think of her? How you're somebody who understands wargaming very well, Lieutenant Colonel. How do you wargame her as an opponent here in politics going into this November decision point?
Well, as the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, she just made my job incredibly easy. I mean, here's a person that embraces the Green New Deal. The last thing that anyone in Texas wants to hear is that you want to get rid of the oil and gas industry in the next 10 to 12 years. She doesn't believe that people should have private health insurance. That's something that she said. And we are a border state, and she believes that the border should be open and that illegal immigrants should get free health care. Texas is the #1 state in the United States of America for human and sex trafficking. And we have a ticket with former Vice President Biden and Kamala Harris that believe in open borders, decriminalizing crossing our border illegally. What does that tell you? Their concerns about the young men and young women that are being trafficked right here in the great state of Texas. So she's going to be a gift that will keep on giving, and will draw that clear delineation.
Lieutenant Colonel Allen West, author, commentator, former congressman. Oh, wait, before we let you go, sir, I wanted to also just see, how are you doing in Texas right now with COVID? I had a lot of listeners, because we have a great audience in Texas, and particularly in the Austin area, KLBJ Austin. We had a lot of listeners writing in saying that they were very disappointed that Texas seemed to be locking down hard, and they were starting to believe some of the more extreme mandates were necessary in the fight against COVID. How are you doing, and how do you see the way forward for your state?
Well, without a doubt, I think the most important thing is that we have to focus on the most severely affected demographics. When you look, the median age for COVID-19 deaths is 78, which is really about the life expectancy age for the United States of America. So we have to protect our senior citizens. But we also need to make sure that we are doing the things that enable us to continue to be the 10th largest economy in the world, making sure that our oil and gas industry stays viable. So when you look at the numbers, Buck, I mean, 29 million people here in Texas, really about 0.04% have lost their lives due to COVID-19. So I think that we need to be sensible and not allow this to become a political issue, treat it as a medical issue.
Lieutenant Colonel Allen West, always great to have you, sir. Come back soon. Let's talk to you before this election actually happens.
Thanks so much, Buck. Take care.
Hey, Team Buck, thank you so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, please click that little thumbs up button so then it will log as liked. And also, if you want to see more great content from The First, please click subscribe.